All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something every organization really needs to think about: business continuity.
Yeah, no matter what you do or how big you are, you gotta have a plan for when things go wrong, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because let's be honest, disruptions happen. It's not a matter of if, but when.
That's where a business continuity management system, BCMS, comes in. It's like your organization's game plan for staying afloat when the unexpected hits.
It's about having a framework in place to keep your essential operations up and running, even when you're facing, well, whatever curveballs get thrown your way.
Right. And in this deep dive, we're going to zero in on the foundation of a strong BCMS. We're talking about leadership. And our guidebook for this journey is Clause 5 of the ISO 23313 standard.
Now, just to refresh everyone's memory, ISO 23313 basically provides guidance on using ISO 22331, the one with all the actual requirements for setting up your BCMS.
Think of it this way. 22331 is like the rule book, and 223313 is the coach giving you tips and tricks on how to play the game effectively.
Perfect analogy. And Clause 5, all about leadership, is where the real game plan starts. Because you can have the most detailed plans and procedures in the world.
But if your leadership isn't fully on board, if they don't champion business continuity, yeah, it's unlikely to actually work when you need it most.
A successful BCMS needs that buy-in from the top down. It has to be part of the organization's DNA. So today, we're going to break down Clause 5 step by step, kind of like we're instructors, guiding you through each section and highlighting what it means in the real world.
Exactly. And the best part is these principles are applicable across the board, no matter what industry you're in or how big or small your organization is. It's all about setting the right tone from the top.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. Section 5.1 is all about leadership and commitment. And the first part, 5.1.1, titled General, sets a pretty fundamental idea, doesn't it?
It does. It really emphasizes that leadership commitment can't just be lip service. Leaders at all levels need to actively demonstrate their commitment to the BCMS.
Right. It can't just be, oh yeah, business continuity, that's important. It's got to be backed up with actions, how they make decisions, how they allocate resources.
Yeah, it's got to be woven into the fabric of the organization. Leaders have to walk the talk.
Exactly. It's more than just saying it, they have to live it.
hmm
Which brings us to 5.1.2, top management, where this commitment really needs to be crystal clear.
Absolutely. And this section gets very specific about what top management is responsible for when it comes to the BCMS. For instance, it talks about making sure the BCMS aligns with the organization's overall strategic direction.
So it's not just this separate thing off in a corner, right?
No.
It's got to be integrated with the big picture.
Right. Think about it. If your company is all about, say, rapid growth and innovation, well, your BCMS needs to keep pace with that. It needs to address the specific risks that come with that kind of aggressive expansion.
Like if you're building a house on the coast, you need to make sure it can withstand hurricanes. The structure has to match the environment.
Exactly. And that's why top management has to ensure that the BCMS is woven into the very fabric of how the organization does business. It can't be an afterthought.
So what happens when you see a BCMS that's not aligned with the company's bigger strategy? What are some red flags?
One big one is when there's a clash in priorities. Like the company is going full steam ahead with a risky new venture, but the BCMS is stuck on maintaining the status quo. Or resources are poured into new projects without a thought about how those projects would recover if something went wrong.
It's almost like they're operating in different universes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Another sign is when you never hear business continuity mentioned in those high-level meetings, where the big strategic decisions are made. It should be part of those conversations.
Absolutely. So alignment is crucial. What else does top management need to be responsible for, according to this section?
They've also got to make sure those BCMS requirements are baked into the organization's everyday processes. So it's not just a document that sits on a shelf, it's actually how things get done.
So thinking about business continuity right from the start, like when you're designing a new product or launching a new service.
Exactly. That might mean lining up alternative suppliers, just in case your main one gets disrupted.
Yeah.
Or figuring out backup plans for those critical production processes.
Okay, so it's about weaving it in, not bolting it on as an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I guess that also means making sure the resources are there to actually make it happen, right?
100%. Top management has to make sure there's enough money, people, technology, and infrastructure to really get the BCMS off the ground and keep it running smoothly.
And not just enough resources, but the right ones in the right places, right? It's about strategic allocation to make the biggest impact on resilience.
Exactly. And that's where communication comes in. It's another huge part of top management's role. They need to be the ones shouting from the rooftops about how important effective business continuity management is.
Because if people don't get it, if they don't understand why it matters, they're not going to be engaged, right?
Right. They're not going to participate in those drills. They're not going to follow the procedures. They might not even bother reporting potential risks.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
So what's the ultimate outcome that top management needs to make sure the BCMS achieves?
The bottom line, the DCMS needs to work. It has to be effective in helping the organization keep delivering those crucial products and services, even after a major disruption. And not just delivering them in some haphazard way, but at an acceptable level, at a level that's been predefined.
So they can't just check the box and say, okay, we've got a BCMS. They need to constantly monitor it, make sure it's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. It's all about oversight and results. And that includes directing and supporting all the people who are actually making the BCMS work.
Right, providing guidance, removing obstacles, and really empowering those teams to get things done, and also making sure it keeps improving,
Yeah.
right? Because the business world doesn't stand still.
You got it. A good BCMS is dynamic. It learns and adapts as the organization changes, as the environment around it changes. Like, let's say there's a big incident. Well, you conduct a post-incident review, figure out what worked and what didn't, and then update your plans and procedures.
So it's constantly evolving, just like everything else in business. Now, we've talked a lot about top management, but Section 5.1.3 is a good reminder that leadership isn't just about the folks at the very top. It's called other managerial roles. So what does it emphasize?
Basically, it's saying that everyone in a leadership position, no matter where they are in the organization, has a role to play in championing business continuity. They've got to show their teams that they take it seriously.
So it's about distributed leadership, right? Where
Yeah.
everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Exactly. Those managers in the middle, they're the ones who really set the tone for how things actually work day to day. They can make a huge difference in how effectively business continuity is embedded throughout the whole organization.
They're the ones who translate that top-level vision into action. Okay, so we've got leadership and commitment covered. Let's shift gears to Section 5.2, which is all about policy. And the first part, 5.2.1, focuses on establishing the business continuity policy. What's the basic idea here?
Well, this is where you put that commitment into writing, essentially.
Yeah.
You lay out the organization's overall intentions and direction when it comes to business continuity. It's your official stance on how you're going to prepare for and deal with disruptions.
So it's not just talk, it's actually documented.
Right. And the guidance lays out some key things that have to be in that policy. For starters, it has to be tailored to the specific organization. A one-size-fits-all policy just isn't going to cut it.
Makes sense. A small nonprofit is going to have very different needs and priorities than a multinational corporation.
Exactly. So you have to take into account your specific risks, objectives, and the environment you operate in. It's got to be a custom fit.
And it's not just about saying what you're going to do. It's about setting objectives. How do those fit in?
Right. The policy needs to spell out those big picture goals you're trying to achieve with your BCMS. For example, you might say, our objective is to minimize financial losses during a disruption. Or, we want to make sure our critical customer services stay up and running.
So you're setting the strategic direction for the whole BCMS.
Exactly. And then there's the commitment piece. The policy has to include a commitment to meet any relevant requirements. You know, like legal or regulatory obligations, contractual stuff, anything that applies to business continuity in your specific industry or location.
And that commitment to constant improvement, right?
Yeah.
That it's not just a one-and-done thing.
Absolutely. You got to be ready to review and tweak your BCMS as things change, as you learn from experience. It's a living document, essentially.
And all of this gets formally documented, right? It's not just a bunch of ideas floating around in people's heads.
Nope, it's got to be written down black and white, partly for clarity so everyone's on the same page, but also to show everyone that you're serious about this.
So you create this well-defined, relevant policy. But that's just step one. What about actually getting it out there, making sure people know about it?
Right, that's 5.2.2, communicating the business continuity policy. This one's all about making sure the policy reaches all the right people, both inside and potentially outside the organization.
So internally, it's about making sure all the employees know that business continuity is a priority and that they have a role to play. What about externally? Who else might need to know about your policy?
Well, it depends on the organization, but it could be anyone who has a vested interest in your ability to keep running smoothly. Key customers, for example, important suppliers, regulators, insurance companies, maybe even the local community in some cases.
And why is that important? Why share it outside the organization?
Well, for one thing, it builds trust. It shows those external stakeholders that you take business continuity seriously, that you've got a plan to deal with disruptions, and that can be a big plus, especially these days.
Like a competitive advantage almost.
Exactly. It shows you're reliable, that you're planning for the long haul, but simply having the policy and making it available somewhere, that's not enough. You've got to actively communicate it, make sure people understand it.
So it's not just, hey, here's the policy, go read it. It's more about explaining it, making it relevant to people's day-to-day work.
You got it. That might mean including it in training programs, talking about it in team meetings, sending out internal newsletters, maybe even working it into the onboarding process for new hires.
It's about making it real, not just a bunch of words on a page. Okay, so we've covered leadership commitment and the policy itself. Let's move on to the last part of Clause 5, Section 5.3. Roles, responsibilities, and authorities. This seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's basically about making sure there's no confusion about who does what and who has the authority to make decisions about the BCMS.
So it's about accountability, making sure things don't fall through the cracks.
Right. It's about having a clear structure, a chain of command, so to speak, so everybody knows who's responsible for what. The guidance lays out some specific responsibilities that need to be assigned. One big one is making sure that your BCMS actually meets all the requirements of ISO 22301.
So someone needs to be in charge of making sure you're following the rule book, so to speak.
Exactly. Usually this falls to the business continuity manager or whoever's in charge of the BCMS overall. They're the ones who have to make sure everything's aligned with the standard.
And someone needs to keep top management in the loop about how the BCMS is performing, right?
Yep, that's another crucial responsibility that has to be assigned. Regular reporting to top management is key. They need to know what's working, what's not working, and what needs to be improved. That way they can make informed decisions and provide the right kind of support.
It's all about that feedback loop, right? Keeping everyone informed so the BCMS can keep getting better. And I guess it's not just about those high-level responsibilities either. You need to break it down even further, right?
Absolutely. You've got to have clear roles and responsibilities for every step of the BCMS lifecycle. Conducting business impact analyses, figuring out your risk assessments, developing and maintaining those continuity plans, running tests and exercises. All of that needs clear ownership.
It's like putting together a puzzle. Every piece has its place. All right, so to sum up Clause 5, all about leadership, setting the stage, establishing a crystal clear policy, and making sure everyone knows exactly what their role is.
Precisely. And those three things, that's the foundation for a truly effective BCMS. Without them, you might have a plan on paper, but it's not going to hold up when the pressure's on.
So to our listeners out there, I want to leave you with this. Think about how leadership in your own organization approaches business continuity. Do you see those three key elements in place?
The visible commitment from everyone at the top, a well-defined policy that everyone understands, and clear roles and responsibilities from the top all the way down.
These are crucial questions to ask yourself, because if you can answer yes to all three, you're already on the path to building a resilient organization.
And a solid understanding of Clause 5, it's really just the beginning. It lays the groundwork for all the other parts of ISO 22313 and ISO 22301, the planning, the implementation, the testing, all the nuts and bolts of actually building your BCMS. And trust me, we'll be digging into all of that in future deep dives.
But for now, we want to leave you with this one thought. How can your organization's leadership step up their game, really champion business continuity, so you can face those inevitable disruptions head on?
It's a question worth pondering. And until next time, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.